Good day everyone, Steve Briggs here. So my video today will be based on setting up an FTP server. And with the setting up of this, it will allow to connectivity locally and externally. So the first thing you do in the process of setting this up, you download FileServer server version. There are other different third-party software, but we'll work with FileZilla because it's easy to set up. So you're just going to Google and type up FileZilla. Here's the website, and then you download the server version. Once that is completed, you run the setup file, and here now let's click I agree, leave everything as default, and click next. Don't worry about the port number and these other things here, leave that as default. Click next, leave this as default, and click install. This wouldn't take long. Alright, so it's finished. When you click close, you're gonna see this pop-up box here. Now sometimes when you install it, when this pop-up box come up, you wouldn't see the IP address. You may see like 2 dots and some brackets, and what you can do is you can put in this IP address here, which is 127.0.0.1, and if you start it and you're getting errors, restart your computer and everything will sort itself out. But as for now, just click OK and we are logged on. So what we are doing here now is that we are going to set up users on a user to log on as an authentication to log in onto the FTP server. How are we going to go about doing this? Well, you click edit, click users. Now you add a new user, you select a name. As I say, please enter the name of the user account that should be added. You can use your name or friend name, but for me I will use my name. Feel free to use whatever name you feel like. When you finish here now, you click OK. The next thing we are going to do now is to create a shared folder. Basically, the shared folder is the folder that will contain other files and folders that you want people to access. So how do we go about doing that? Click the shared folder and then we click add. After we click add, you can actually select a drive, an individual drive, or you can select a folder itself or a file. So for me then, in such scenario, I will select a folder. So I'll go to my libraries, I will select my music. With this being done now, what we have to do, we have to put in the different settings and stuff for the user. Create a directory, also if you want to allow them to delete the files and so forth. But just to backtrack quickly, something that it now dawned on me, in the general settings, after you create a user, you have to put in a password. You don't, well, I shouldn't say you have to, but it's recommended. A password, it kind of secure your activities then on your server. So you can go back to the shared folder. As we can see, it is stored here, right? When we are finished with everything here now, which is the general and the shared folder, we just click OK and everything is set up. Everything is good to go. What we do now, to get onto this, we need our IP address, but what we will be doing here, we will be logging onto the FTP server locally. So how do we do this? As I said, you need to acquire the system's IP address. You can go through the lengthy process of going through the open network and share center and the network card and go for click on details, or you can go through the simpler way. Just type in CMD, this will come up, command prompt, and what you do here, you type ipconfig and your system's IP address will be here, IP version 4. This is it right here. So what we do now, you could write it down, memorize it. You open up a browser and you type FTP : / and then you put in your system's IP address. Now it will vary. It will vary with your system. Your system may not have the same IP address as mine, so make sure I'm putting this IP address here, the one that is assigned to your system. When you're finished, you just type enter, and this authentication box will come up. So remember the username that we set up here. Basically the username and the password that we set up will be the username and password we'll be using here to get in to the FTP server. So just type it in and then we click OK. So as you can see, we are logged in here now. So the files, the folders I have here are basically folders within my FTP server. Those are the shared folders. So I have here some old school Love Rockers music. Yes, good music. And we can go back up a directory higher level. Can go a higher level again, and basically that is it there. These are just the stuff within that shared folder. So from here I've demonstrated logging into the FTP server locally. Now the next part here now is actually logging into the server from an external source. So your server may be, say, home, and then you may be at work and you want to log on to it. The critical thing to remember is that your system must be running if you plan to log on to it from an external source. How are we going to go about doing this? The first thing you have to do is identify what is your IP address, the public address for your your router. So how do you do this? You can go to Google. What you can type in here is what's my IP. What is my IP? Sorry. This is our website that will bring up your IP address here. Or you can go to this website also, just for proof, IP check-in. Alright, IP check-in will bring up your public address for your router. So as we can see here, you could compare and contrast. Well, compare is the same thing. So in order to log into the FTP server from external device, you do the same procedure as logging into it locally. Now you type in FTP : / and you put in the public IP address. Basically what will happen here is that the device that you have, it will go to this router, it will find this router, and then this router now will send whatever, will connect to your FTP server, and then the pop-up box that we had here will come up and we log in as normal. Now the thing about this with my setup is that how my router settings are, I cannot log into the FTP on a network using, I cannot log into it actually using the public address. I can only work with it using the private addresses that have been assigned to it. But in order to log into it from the public, I have to do it from an external device. I cannot do it locally here using this address. So what I have to do in order to make this functionality operational, I have to log into my router. Now logging into your router, you go by using your default gateway. The default gateway, it will be right here. So you just put in your IP address, and then you put in the username and password that was assigned to the router. Most of the time the username and password, people don't really change that. It will be admin. Okay, but my own have been changed for security reasons, because I don't want anyone tampering with my router's settings. So I'm into the router here now. When I'm looking at it here now, basically it tells me different stuff here: the MAC address, the default gateway. This is also the IP address. Now this default gateway is the public default gateway. I have the primary DNS server, but that is not the important thing here now. The important thing here now is to actually put in just the IP address of the system that is hosting the FTP server. So with here now, you click the MZ host and you put in the IP address of the system that is hosting the server, which is your system. So basically you'll be putting back in your IP address in here in this settings, and then you click save and apply. Now when you operate, if for those who have the Linksys routers, the Cisco Linksys routers, when you log into your router, you will see the tab that mark application and gaming. When you go into that, you will actually encounter similar settings, features. You will have the DMZ host, you will have port triggering, you will have port forwarding. Port forwarding is the more recommended for this kind of setup, and the ports that you will be using is of port 21, because basically what in this scenario here now is that when you use the port forwarding, you assign a specific port to be open, whereas with this here now is like you open all your ports, so you are vulnerable. But I'm just doing it to demonstrate how to get onto your as I say, your FTP server from an external device. You will have more tweaking and stuff to do, but as I said earlier on too, with some person routers, they actually got onto it using the public IP address and connecting back to their network locally. But for me, it's not there's no functionality in that. Test it out here. You will just see it mark connecting, and basically an error will come up. But I've actually set it up to make sure this is functional using my phone. So what I did, I disabled the Wi-Fi settings on my phone, and I enable the data plan. So the data plan now connected me to I was like an external network, so it come like I was like somewhere in Port of Spain, and I like, okay, I want to access my my computer from home, which is running. So what I did now, I need data plan, because come on, my Wi-Fi from home cannot reach to Port of Spain, because I live very far from Port of Spain. So I did that, and what I did, I went through the same settings as I did with like this here. I used the FTP // and I placed the public address, which is this here, the public address assigned to my router, and I was greeted with the same authentication box, and I was able to log in and get access to all my files. So basically this is just a demonstration of the FTP logging in and stuff. I know it would have been greatly appreciated, it would have been better if I can if this would have logged in, but I just demonstrate to you, not demonstrate but explain what you will have to do in order for it to work. Okay, well everyone, thanks for watching.